VWBus.com. Time to get on the bus. Tonight, we focus on an extraordinary book, Women of Visionary Art. In this full-color illustrated book, David J. Brown and Rebecca Ann Hill examine the work and inspirations of 18 of today's leading female visionary artists, including Josephine Wall, Alison Gray, Amanda Sage, Martina Hoffman, Penny Slinger, and Carolyn May Kleefeld. They explore the creative process and the role that dreaming, psychedelic experiences, sexuality, and divine guidance play in the work of these women, alongside full-color examples of their art. They discuss the future of visionary art and reveal how these artists have all been informed and inspired by deep inner experiences and seek to express non-ordinary visions of reality, often reminiscent of those encountered in shamanic trance, lucid dreams, psychedelic states, spiritually transcendent experiences, and other altered states. The book is co-authored by David J. Brown and Rebecca Ann Hill. David J. Brown holds a master's degree in psychobiology from New York University, a former neuroscience researcher at the University of Southern California. He has written for Wired, Discovered, Scientific American, The Huffington Post, CBS News. He is the author of more than a dozen books, including Dreaming Wide Awake and Frontiers of Psychedelic Consciousness. Rebecca Ann Hill is a visual artist with a wide range of experience in different mediums. The co-author and illustrator of Ecstatic Love, Lost Dreams, and Mystic Visions. She creates illustrations for websites, promotes ayahuasca retreats in Peru, and is a skillful tarot reader. The authors live in Ben Lomond, California. Welcome back, or welcome to 21st Century Radio, David and Rebecca, or if you're left-handed, Rebecca and David.
Thank you for that marvelous introduction, Bob. It's really a great pleasure to be here.
Well,
Hi, thank you so much for that introductory. And I actually am left-handed.
You are left-handed?
Cool. Yeah.
Well, I must be psychic every now and then. Well,
Yeah.
every now and then. Now, we got a lot of questions. This is an extraordinary work. I'm so proud of you guys for doing this because it is so sorely needed, and it was needed at the quality of level that you're giving it. Now, I mentioned that you had a few colored photos of you've got 6, 7, 8 of every artist just about. I mean, that's extraordinary. You got to admit that. Are you going to admit that? You're going to admit that, right?
We were so fortunate that our publisher allowed us to use full-color illustrations on almost every page, and it's an amazing showcase of those incredibly talented artists.
Beautiful paintings, beautiful, one after another. I mean, it was just one long experience of my diving into this for only 4 or 5 days. That's all the time I got for a book these days. Well, by the way, what initially inspired your interest in visionary artwork?
Well, I've been interested in psychedelic artwork, surrealism, fantastic artwork that deals with the unusual, ever since I've been a young child, really. I wrote an article for High Times magazine back in the 90s about my interest in psychedelic art. And, there wasn't that many artists at the time back in the 90s when I wrote my original article. There was maybe a couple of dozen, really main psychedelic artists in the world. And, part of the inspiration for doing this book was just seeing the enormous influx, the incredible amount of visionary artists that are really talented visionary artists that are appearing in the world today. It's very, very hard to keep track of what's going on. So my long-term interest and then seeing this incredible blossoming that's going on in the world today is really what got me interested in it and inspired me to do the book. I also wanted to just say that part of the motivation for doing the book specifically with women was that, I've done 6 interview books, and one of the criticisms that I got for doing those books, and believe me, this was really nothing intentional, but I was criticized repeatedly for having more men than women in all of my books. So I really wanted to do a book that was specifically dealing with exceptional and brilliant women, and that was part of the inspiration for doing this.
And Rebecca is one of those exceptional, beautiful women. Rebecca, how did you get into this particular field?
Well, I've always, well, hold on. Okay, so I was using visionary art as a way to kind of like express like the emotions that I was having through, healing my trauma with PTSD. And a part of healing my PTSD, I had used psychedelics. And upon using the psychedelics, I was having these extraordinary visions. And so I started to paint what I was seeing. And then I soon found out that I was not the only one experiencing these same kind of visions that I was. And I realized that a lot, especially on social media, that a lot of the women, their work wasn't being showcased in the same ways that a lot of the men's work were being showcased.
Now that's an understatement here.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, we have to put a book together of all women. And it's not just, I mean, it's not really just, I guess it's females too, but it's more of like the, okay, so you have like feminine and then masculine energies. What we're really trying to do is bring the feminine energy into the collective more so to create a balance. And what better, to do that than bring women into it, because women are like the center of feminine energy, right?
Right.
And so I believe that like the archetypal feminine is also like linked to like experiences with the like creative matrix of our life and our species. And so we're able to we are like the creators from.
Yeah. I think she was saying we're sort of helping to manifest the creative divine. That there's something larger that's working through us all, and that is coming through in her experience and coming through in the experience of other artists. And she was seeing this sense of community, and that what she was doing wasn't really that original.
But they are in many other ways, though. How did you start doing these interviews, David?
Me personally, I've been doing interviews, since I'm 57 now, and I've been doing interviews since I was around 16 years old. I started walking around the streets of New York City and Los Angeles when I was younger with a little tiny tape recorder and asking people what they thought the meaning of life was, the purpose of life.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. And that's really how I got started. I was, in my early 20s when I found myself in a situation where I knew a lot of very famous, accomplished people like Terence McKenna, Timothy Leary, Stephen LaBerge, different people. And, it occurred to me that I was in a really amazing position to interview these people. And, my partner at the time, we used to have these late-night discussions about the meaning of life, the purpose of life, and we realized nobody had really interviewed people about, these deep philosophical questions. Why was nobody asking them what they thought happened to consciousness after death, or what they thought concepts of God were about, or the purpose of life, or the evolution of life? And so that was really the motivation for doing those interviews. And it started with Mavericks of the Mind back, it was published in 1993, and I've now done this is my sixth book of interviews. Women in Visionary Art, the one that I just completed with Rebecca. So it's been a long-term project. I'm working on a new interview book right now.
Well, you've only written a measly 12 books. What's going on? You just sitting around doing nothing?
Yeah, just wasting time interviewing people.
I know, but boy, they're good. Well, Rebecca, would you like to speak to us about your past life memories and visions of being burned as a witch? And tell us how.
Yeah, okay, I'm back. I actually just had like a mini panic attack, to be honest. I can talk about that through, let's see here. So when I first started diving into psychedelics, I started to tap into what seemed like at first was a vision of myself being burned at the stake. And I've been thinking about this question quite often through like the past, like when I wish I would have written the book differently than I would have written it a lot different today if I could have. But through my evolution in the past like 3 years since I wrote that in the book, my perspective on it has changed a lot. When it first happened, I was thinking maybe that it was actually like a part of my own self being burned. But then each time I would go into a different journey, I would see it through a different viewpoint and a different perspective. And I think that like whether it was just a scar left in the collective, like a ghostly kind of realm, because it's undeniably something that's happened in our collective where women are in, just people, not even real witches, just people of any kind that had any kind of hearsay would be burned and tortured, and it still goes on today.
It sure
so
does.
It definitely leaves its scar in its collective, and I think that was something that I picked up on, regardless of how or why I picked up on it. It's something that I did pick up on, and I believe that it's still happening today, and that it's something that needs to be talked about. Because, we're doing more pain than good because we're really just all like one being, and so we're really just doing it to ourselves.
Well, I remember the first experience I ever had in bumping into a past life. I spent a lot of time in the military, and so in this lifetime, when I was going to be born again, we choose how we're going to come in. I chose to come into this particular area of Baltimore because I was afraid our country eventually was going to fall apart again. I lost my life before 1776. I was an officer and passed on up in Canada at that particular time. That's one of the reasons why I dislike the cold extremely much. But right now, gosh, we got to take a break here on 21st Century Radio. Our guests are Rebecca Ann Hill, David J. Brown, Women of Visionary Art, Park Street Press. Order the book at www.innertraditions.com or wherever fine books are sold. Do you appreciate the Statue of Liberty as an American goddess? Well, we do, in our new book, Secret Life of Lady Liberty, Goddess in the New World. It's been described as a long overdue feminist and multi-ethnic history of the Statue of Liberty that surprisingly draws our country's entire history through this iconic image. Appreciating the Statue of Liberty as America's goddess allowed us to explore her Native American and feminist roots and to envision a sustainable future where liberty indeed prevails. What can the Statue of Liberty teach us about women's power? Well, find out at www.secretlifeofladyliberty.com. That's secretlifeofladyliberty.com.
Hello, this is Stanley Krippner. I'm professor of psychology at Saybrook Graduate School in San Francisco on behalf of 21st Century Radio, run by Dr. Bob Hieronymus. And I would certainly encourage listeners to stay tuned because you will hear things on 21st Century Radio that you'll hear nowhere else on the airwaves.
Thank you, Brother Stanley Krippner, Dr. Stanley Krippner. He was my doctoral committee chairman. I spent 5.5 years under Stanley Krippner, and they were wonderful times, but boy, was he tough. He was tough. But hey, listen to this. Visionary artists are the messengers between worlds, avatars of the sublime and its shadows. They record the timeless onto a canvas, page, heart, or so-called time. That was by one of the visionary artists here, Carolyn Mary Klefeld. I hope I pronounced her last name right. Klefeld. And I just got corrected. Serves me right. Okay, let's see. David, what are some of your favorite interviews in this collection, in the collection of the interviews?
Let me just say before we talk about our favorite interviews, honestly, it's wonderful that you work with Stanley Krippner. I didn't know that. He's an old friend and colleague of mine. I've known him for many years and been a brilliant inspiration in my life. So I'm really delighted to hear that you've worked with him. I also want to say that I'm so jealous of you and Rebecca having these past life memories. With all my shamanic experiences, I've never had a past life memory except for remembering that I was a frog or a fish or some kind of pre-human animal. But anyway, it's a very, very hard question to answer, who are our favorite interviews in the book, because, they're all so amazing, and I think each woman has something really unique and special to offer the collection, and I think together as a whole they make up any more than any one of as an individual part. But I think the women that probably the older women like Carolyn Merritt Kleefeld, Penny Slinger, Martina Hoffman, some of the older women really had a lot of wisdom to share from a whole lifetime of experience.
Alison Gray. Alison Gray.
Yeah, and Alison Gray. And do you want to talk a little bit about some of your? Yes. Okay. Well, so Martina Hoffman, Alison Gray, Carolyn Kleefeld, Penny Slinger. I mean, it's hard to say they're really the favorites in the book because we really loved everyone, and the artwork is also incredible. But I think in terms of the actual information they imparted, I think some of the greatest wisdom in the book.
Well, I learned a great deal from this book. There's no doubt about it. And God bless Ashley Josephine Foreman. She says,
yes.
I'd like to think that we might one day live in a world where everyone is an artist in some form or another, liberating their self-expression as a way of celebrating life itself. We have been saying that on this program for almost 30 years. I'm trying to convince people, all people are artists. And
well, certainly all people are artists when they're born, right? All children are artists, incredibly creative, and we go through a system that systematically removes that creativity and imagination from us as much as possible, unless we struggle against it to preserve ourselves. But I think that also we're moving as a species. Our evolution right now is moving in such a way where, artificial intelligence and advanced robotics and quantum computers are going to take over much of what we consider to be work right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that, the main function of human beings in the very near future is going to involve exercising our creativity and our imagination. And I think that's partially why psychedelics are becoming so popular in the mainstream. We're seeing all this vindication of psychedelic scientific medical research for so many years. They were demonized, ridiculed, ignored, and they're finally the truth. The scientific truth is coming out, and I think this is all part of some kind of greater revolutionary process, moving us into a more creative and more imaginative mind space. Because I think that's really what we were really meant to be doing.
So your view on psychedelics, that they have certainly affected art in some very positive ways.
Yeah, could you say that again, please?
That psychedelics have certainly affected art in some very positive ways.
Yeah, and in ways many people probably haven't realized.
Like finding your meaning in life. I mean, that's a small thing like that. I mean,
yes,
I was fortunate. When I was 23, that's when I finally discovered my meaning in life. And I'm glad I discovered it then, because I had a long time to work on it that way. Oh, the importance, I wanted to ask, let's see, Rebecca would be best, I guess, to ask the one. Mm-hmm. Rebecca, what's the importance of balance?
Of what?
Balance. Balance in art, balance in consciousness, balance.
Well, if you don't have balance, then things get kind of, unbalanced.
Yes,
so it's
sure.
It's messy, and it's like when I think about balance, I always think about like feminine and masculine energy, and each, feminine energy has its place, as does masculine, and you have healthy masculinity, such as assertiveness and anger. Those things are tools to use. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they're not if you use them and you misdirect anger and you misdirect your assertiveness, then that is when things get not, out of balance, And so what I think is happening right now is I think that the masculine energy within ourselves and then within the collective is out of balance. Like, I think that we're using, anger and assertiveness and, all those masculine qualities in a way that should be redirected in other ways. And then I believe that the feminine energy needs to be, we should be more compassionate towards, other people and, all of those feminine qualities, nurturing qualities, I think we need to, level up on. And then I believe that once you can do both of those things with the masculine and the feminine, then you kind of reach like some sort of like balance and unity within them. But if you don't, then obviously things get kind of out of whack. Like things that we're seeing going on in politics, like we've always had there. It's like, that is because of underneath it all is all about unbalance within ourselves and within the collective.
Yeah, let me just add, we're living in a world of duality. Everything is made of light and darkness. There's a continuous tension between the polar opposites of everything to do with life and the nature of the universe. And there was a wonderful film years ago called Kayanasquatsi, which is a Hopi word that means life out of balance, as being the primary problem that's going on this planet right now. I think it's pretty clear to anyone who looks at the ecological imbalances and climate change. It's primarily being caused by a lack of male and female balance in the world. It's being highly tilted towards competitive masculine energies that are at the expense of the nurturing cooperative energies of the more feminine aspects of nature. And that as a species right now, we're talking about our evolution and where we're going and our spiritual direction. It's absolutely important that these male and female energies become more balanced. And that was also part of the inspiration for doing our book, was to help promote a more feminine perspective on a lot of these different aspects of life and art and energy, and in so doing to help try to restore this Kayanasquatsi, or this out of balance nature on our planet right now.
Well, what did you learn from doing these interviews that you didn't know before?
I can take that over. Well, I learned that people that tap into these visionary experiences don't necessarily have to do a psychedelic to tap into it. Because before I started doing psychedelics, always had a really vivid dream life. And, I could remember my dreams since I was just a small child, every night. And it was so vivid. But I didn't necessarily start seeing, now all I have to do is close my eyes and I can go right into a hypnagogic kind of visionary experience. It's wild. But before that, I couldn't. And so for me, it took psychedelics on, turning that switch on. But some people just naturally have that ability without even having to do any kind of mind-altering substances. And it kind of surprised me. Because these are really, really profound, deep, kind of transcending God-like experiences that people can tap into without even having to, do anything besides maybe meditation or, something like that. But as far as taking another drug, mind-altering substance, there's no, they already have it. And so that was really surprising to me.
It was also surprising to me that almost the opposite. I'm very interested in dreams. I wrote a whole book, Dreaming Wide Awake, about lucid dreaming, and I initially kind of assumed when we did the book that dreams were going to play a much more important role in inspiring the paintings of many of our artists. And I was surprised at how few. There were a few that mentioned dreams being an inspiration, but a number of them said that dreams didn't really play any role. And yeah, I thought that was a pretty surprising aspect of the book for me.
Wow, that's right. Well, you know, I wish I would have had 2 weeks to read this book because I could remember a lot more than I read. When you read something like this in 3 days, there are just too many things that you're just not going to remember, unfortunately. How can this book be an inspiration and tool for young artists? Now, this is really key to me as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's one of the questions. Yeah, that's one of the questions that we asked everybody that we interviewed was, what advice would they give to young artists just starting? And we really wanted to see what inspired them and, how they got involved in their career and the struggles they had to fight against. And it was very interesting because a lot of the women really, talked about different things. They talked about, of course, not relying on your artwork, as your primary source of income, or to find your original style and not try to get caught in any one way of doing things. But there was a number of different advice that people offered in the book, and I think that we really wanted to help encourage young artists to do the book. I think Rebecca had something.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the inspiration and how it could be inspiring for other women or artists just in general. Is that artists are like the most self-critical people on earth.
You can
it's
see.
Like
You got to hit that right on the head.
And so when you read this book, you come to find out that the very best of the best, that you would have never thought would be self-critical are the most self-critical, and you get to see yourself as it's like a sacred mirror, and it's like a direct reflection that you can see yourself in each and every single artist, and that they have had the very same fears and insecurities and doubts and criticisms, and then you go, wow, like, okay, I'm not alone in this. This is like the artist's road. I'm doing okay because this is kind of normal. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
And so I think that in itself is inspiring, and it gives people that hope that, even though you are critical and things may seem dark, that you can still rise above the ashes, and you can still really make something out of yourself, whether you're in a dark place or not. And so I just think that for me, anyways, was super inspiring, and just to feel that I'm not alone,
Well, it's time for us to take another break here. I'm going to inspire everybody out there in the audience right about now. David J. Brown and Rebecca Ann Hill are joining us tonight. Women of Visionary Art, Park Street Press. You can order the book again at www.innertraditions.com or wherever fine books are sold.
This is Max Dashu of the Suppressed Histories Archives. You're listening to 21st Century Radio with Dr. Bob Hieronymus. For global women's heritages, icons, and video clips, visit www.suppresshistories.net.
Yes, oh, good old Max. Boy, we had such a wonderful time with her. And, it's just amazing how long the domination of women has been going on. Well, we better not get into that right now because we talk about that just about every week. However, how do you envision the future of visionary art, Rebecca?
How do I envision the future of visionary art?
That's right.
Well, I think that more people are going to be exposed to visionary art because it's just like exploding in every kind of area of culture, and like with music, paintings, the Sanctuary project that Alex and Alison Gray are doing. I just think that it's like massively exploding right now, and there's like no way to escape like visionary art. So I believe that more people are going to become interested in it and then start getting involved. And I believe that that itself, once more people become involved, they're going to start, you know, opening their hearts and their minds and teaching other people. And I believe that maybe we can like come to some point in time where, you know, everything becomes balanced again, and there's more like compassion for people and all the things that visionary art is there to teach. I believe that we'll be able to actually utilize that in you know, in real 3D life.
What do you think, Dave?
Well, I think that that visionary art is going to be moving into new mediums, more technologically advanced mediums like virtual reality, and it will become more immersive. And Andrew Jones, the visionary artist, is already doing visionary art in virtual reality and trying to create an immersive dome experience where you can, the entire ceiling is created into a screen that you can, you know, sort of immerse yourself into the reality of these things. So I think that the future is really going to, I mean, isn't it amazing that there are now so many more visionary artists than there were 10 years, 20 years? I think this phenomenon is going to increase. There's going to be more and more people that are expressing these states of consciousness because I think the human species is evolving. And I think that our technology in the future is going to give more and more people the opportunity to not only experience visionary art as painting, but in other mediums like virtual reality, where they can become completely immersed in the experience.
Well, I like what Lucy Delix. I'm mispronouncing her name. Delix, D-E-L.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
That's correct.
Like psychedelic.
She said, "The future of this art is to assist." Listen to this, friends. Is to assist in the initiation of humanity into the cosmos. It's like we are passing through puberty, and peace is just around the corner. And then the next page, she says something like, "I see a revolution coming in medicine, a medicine wave to clean the ills of the world." Now, health, this is extremely important for all of us when you find out that the act of creation can improve your health. Do you think I'm exaggerating?
Oh, no. There's scientific evidence that shows that that people who create, people who do artwork, it has all kinds of therapeutic value. So, no, absolutely, it helps your health to be involved in the creative process. It helps to express emotions. Emotions are cause suppressed emotions can cause all kinds of illness and problem, and then the freedom to express yourself through artwork is one of the. I mean, so many psychologists use art therapy as a way of helping people to move through traumas and process things that have happened to them. So, absolutely, of course.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the artistic secrets that you learned from doing this book? Boy, I learned a lot of secrets. Who would like to take that?
Well, it was really hard to get the artists to actually tell the secrets because obviously they're secrets, right? and I mean, I guess in the visionary art world, it's very competitive because it's hard to, sell original artwork or prints or, whatever it may be that you're working on. Mm-hmm. So when we asked them this question, they would give us like an overall kind of like creative process of what they, what their creative process is in Latin terms, like, but it was still, they didn't give us like, the actual branding of what kind of tools they used or anything like that. So it's kind of, I guess each artist has to kind of just, go with the flow and just try out different mediums and different paints and just see what, what is original to them, because you don't want to, copy anybody. You want to be original. Yeah. And that just takes a lot of trial and error, until you find your style, and everybody's style is different,
want to talk to us a little bit more about this going with the flow? What is the flow?
Going with the flow.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're painting, you can kind of you get into this meditative state.
Yeah.
And there's like different flow states you can get into. Like depending if you're listening to music, if you're in silence, if you're listening to a podcast or audiobook, and each one of those different outlets that you use put you in a different kind of altered kind of state while you're painting, and you get into like the flow with it. And then while using like different mediums and paintings, that you just kind of have to. Being in the flow just means like being in the center of a time like dilation, and being able to just kind of like there's no time inside of this frame of like painting,
Well,
yeah, I'm very interested in the flow state too. What was that? We just recently read a book that was about the scientific study of flow states. I mean, flow states are very interesting. The everyone from the Navy SEALs are interested in them to visionary artists. It's that state where you sort of are somewhere on the edge between controlling and letting go. You're letting go into the process, and you're also controlling it in a very sort of balanced way. And when you get lost in a flow state, I've been getting lost in flow states with my writing since I started. And you lose sense of time, you lose sense of space, you don't know where, you're so focused and so involved in the process that you're just not even attached to the material world anymore. And I think that is the goal, really, of the creative process, is to get into that state almost even more than the painting or the book or the result of the creative process. I think that flow state is so essential. When we were talking earlier before about the therapeutic value of the creative process, I think it's that flow state that really is the essence of where the therapeutic value arises from.
Well, having your own studio, which is almost like heaven, in which you are you're the king or queen of your own studio, which means it's an area that you can trust, and over a long period of time of going into the flow states over years, you create energy fields around you, inside and outside, that just put you in a much different state of consciousness than most other people. And that's why I love working in art, especially with children, because once they feel that, and they all of a sudden realize that there's all kinds of other wonderful new things to discover. They go on journeys in this kind of way. So that flow, I found, especially after you work in a studio for a long time, with all of your thought energies going out over a period of decades, it helps you very much. Well, you can very easily slip into a flow field. In other words, you can sit down for a couple of minutes, and there you are.
It's almost like what you're doing is like you're cultivating. I don't know if you're familiar with British biologists' theory of morphic fields, but I guess if you're sort of cultivating that state and getting it into it often, you're creating sort of a field energy that you can more easily, tap into it. One of the other questions that we asked everyone that we interviewed for the book was whether they thought there was any type of invisible guidance or entities or, helping to guide their work. And just about every person that we interviewed said that they felt some type of invisible guidance or spirits or some type of mysterious force that was helping to orchestrate and guide their creative process. So that sort of fits into the flow process somehow and somewhere. There's that process of flow and moving in something and then connecting to something higher, or feeling like there's almost another intelligence that moves through you when you're in that state.
And you become more compassionate.
Well, yes, and that's why this is so important.
Yes,
indeed.
Think,
I think that as a result of these states, you become a more compassionate person, a more sensitive person, and also a more ecologically aware person. And I think that's of absolute, nothing is more important on this planet right now than cultivating higher degrees of ecological awareness.
Yeah, every one of the artists said it in so many different ways, that the importance, of course, is Mother Earth and the fact that what we've done to her, and if we continue to do it, we're through. The planet will go on. It doesn't need us.
Exactly.
It doesn't need us. And it's going to be very strange for people, because we are not, in this country, preparing for what's about to happen. We do not have the leadership. And what's going to happen, of course, we've begun to see the little aspects of, a lot of people felt that, well, we're in the middle of the country, so we don't have to worry about being flooded like the East Coast and the West Coast. Well, bingo. Take a look at it today. The middle of our country is flooded. It will continually be flooded. The same way Houston is always flooded. All of the other problems that we've had. People are going to be desperate in a period of time. Obviously, we need to focus on the environment. We need great leadership when it comes to this, and it has to come now. Maybe it will come with the children. Maybe it will come with others, but we can't wait anymore. We're at the brink of, I haven't seen so many tornadoes in my life in the state of Maryland, et cetera.
Oh, yeah. No, these are crucial times right now. I think as a species we're being given a sort of intelligence test. I mean, I'm very inspired by people like Greta Thunberg. I'm sure you're familiar with her work. There's a lot of hope coming from young people right now. And part of the reason I'm so interested in visionary art, and part of the reason that so much of my writing has been about psychedelics and ayahuasca and magic mushrooms, is because there is scientific evidence that shows that people who have ayahuasca experiences or magic mushroom experiences become more ecologically aware, become more politically active in environmental groups. And like you keep saying, we don't have much time right now. I don't know, 10 years, 20 years before we can really turn things around. I mean, and I don't know of anything really that will turn someone around overnight, like Scrooge in the Christmas Carol, overnight, where somebody can go from being a cigar-smoking CEO of an oil industrial company to suddenly becoming a rainforest activist. It happens in just one night. So I don't know anything else besides a shamanic journey or this type of thing. And I think we're in a very, very, very crucial period in our species evolution, a sort of bottleneck right now. And, either we're going to pass the test and become almost like gods and goddesses. I mean, the potential is just unbelievable right now. The potential is incredible. And also the challenge of actually surviving and not going into extinction. They're both being brought to a head right now. So that's why we did the book, and that's why we're talking on these radio shows, really trying to help people to become, to wake people up and help them become more conscious and more aware, because feeling that the environment, the boundaries between you and the environment, when they start to blur together more, you realize this is really a personal crisis and not just a crisis of our species.
Thank you. And we are taking a break at this time at the top of the hour to hear all the wonderful news, you guys. And after that, we'll return with our guests David J. Brown and Rebecca Ann Hill, or Rebecca Ann Hill and David J. Brown, Women of Visionary Art, Park Street Press. Order the book at www.innertraditions.com or wherever fine books are sold.
Open the doors and board them. There's hope for all among the loved the most.
Stay connected and stay informed on the #1 news talk station, Talk Radio 680, WCBM, Baltimore, and WCBM.com.